Rafiki Microfinance Bank is the third largest microfinance bank in Kenya out of 14, and our vision is to be the leading microfinance bank in providing the most innovative and integrated financial solutions. Intellectual property is intangible assets which arise out of creative works of the mind, and these are used for business to generate value and to create value for the business. So they are basically creative works of the mind out of which you create intangible assets. And when you look at most of the youth and business SMEs, these intangible assets, high value intangible assets, actually contribute over 80% of the worth of those businesses. Some of the examples of intangible assets are patents. Patents are rights of inventions in products and process improvements. We also have trademarks, which are essentially symbols or signs which distinguish the products of one company over another. The emphasis has been on traditional kinds of securities such as land, motor vehicles, shares. But as economies and even countries digitize with the progress and the growing innovation, we have to shift our mind from tangible assets to the intangible assets, because most of the youth who are actually inventors may not have access to those traditional forms of securities. And yet, when you look at the value that is generated from the youth-owned businesses, most of it does not arise from the traditional tangible securities. It is actually generated through the use of the intangible securities, and therefore it is critical, and it is only plausible that the use of intellectual property with the time is going to become the norm more than the exception. And if you look at it globally, I think countries like Brazil, we have countries like China and also Indonesia. I think the use of intellectual property in those countries, I think it is speaking well, and I think Kenya being also a hub in this region and in sub-Saharan Africa, I think it is only possible that, and it is possible that the use of intellectual property as a way of increasing, deepening access to finance, capital, and credit. A number of intangible or intellectual property assets are accepted as collateral, and these are patents, we have trademarks, we have copyrights, we also have industrial designs which are unique and patented. However, for any intellectual property to be used as collateral, it is critical that the owners or the inventors of those intellectual property assets first and foremost register them so that they have exclusive ownership rights. Here in Kenya, these are the body which is mandated by the Constitution is the Kenya Industrial Property Institute, KIPI, and it is therefore necessary that you have a certificate and you go through the validation process to ensure that your rights over that intellectual property is registered under your name. The next thing is to ensure that that asset is also entered in the collateral register, which is maintained by the registrar under the movable property securities rights. Yeah, some of the key challenges that inhibit the use of intellectual property, I think number one is infringement. Despite the existence of the legal framework for the protection and registration and protection of intellectual property from infringement, I think with the enforcement of intellectual property has not been up to speed. And for a potential investor or a lender, it is critical to demonstrate that the revenues and the cash flows that are generated from intellectual property are, number one, predictable, and number two, they are consistent. However, when there is infringement and illegal use of those rights by the people who are not the owners, then that denies revenues to the owner of the intellectual property. And in that regard, then it makes the predictability and consistency of the revenues. And that, of course, then will make potential lenders to shy away. The other challenge is, of course, unlike traditional securities, the valuation of intellectual property, we do not have very well established mechanisms and also expertise for valuation of these assets. If you check under the World International Intellectual Property Organization, I think they do certification of intellectual property valuers. So I think it is critical that we also develop the local capacity. More than 5 years after the enactment of movable property security registry, the usage remains low. We can probably say it's maybe because of the market awareness. The emphasis has been on the tangible securities. And I think the solution there is to create awareness among our business and our SMEs and entrepreneurs that apart from traditional security, you can also use intangible security. But it is not, the awareness is not only in the business community. I think also among banks, there is also need to create that awareness so that we create acceptance of intangible securities as collateral. So at the moment we can say it is low and untapped, but as we move towards digitization and with technological innovation, I think the world is moving from tangible to intangible. And I think this is an idea whose time has come, and it is a matter of time. And with proper collaborative effort, I think this is bound to increase. There is a lot of work that has been done, including research work being done, including in other advanced economies. And KBA is actually at the forefront of engaging various bodies, including the inventors. And it is also very keen, especially to empower the youth enterprise in Kenya to access credit. So there's a lot of engagement going on with various stakeholders on how we can ensure that the banking sector and the market in general embrace this idea so that we can tap this great potential that exists in enabling enterprises access capital and finance using intellectual property. Because like I have stated, you realize most of the youth entrepreneurs, when you look at their balance sheet, you'll most likely find that the assets that generate value, they probably constitute more than 80% of the assets. So when we keep on insisting on the traditional tangible security, then we are denying an opportunity. So the consultations are going on, and I believe it is a matter of time, and the market will embrace the use of intangible intellectual property.